Reviews director Tom Marks here with Travis Northup, our reviewer for Marathon. Travis has been our Bungie reviewer, for lack of a better way of putting it, for a very long time. You reviewed a ton of the Destiny 2 expansions. You also reviewed Arc Raiders, most recently Highguard, rest in peace. So you are a very experienced shooter player, and now you are reviewing Marathon for us. We don't have our final review of Marathon yet. You've played, over 20 hours already through the server slam. You're going to keep playing through the full build of the game, and then we're going to have our final review of this in the future towards the end of March, I think end of March, because they've got some big end game update things coming later. But we wanted to tell y'all what we think about it right now, because you've already played dozens of hours and have a really good sense of what this game is already. So, Travis, tell us, what do you think of Marathon so far?
Yeah, Marathon is a very sweaty extraction shooter that has Bungie gunplay in it. And so kind of the idea of Marathon being like the marriage of this very hardcore game mode that is built around you acquiring and risking loot and getting into these really tense confrontations that determine, who's going to walk away with all the good gear and who's going to end up back at their menu feeling very sad. The idea of combining that like gameplay model with the shooting chops of a studio who really knows what it's doing when it comes to first person shooters has always been a very cool idea. And so the question was, are they going to be able to, is it going to be able to come together? And for a while there was a lot of doubt about that. Marathon has had a very rocky development period.
And also in the middle of that, it's been, having stuff like Concord and Highguard and all these other sort of like service shooters rising and falling before it even arrives, right? So it's coming out at a turbulent time at the same time.
It is, yeah, and I have no idea if it's going to be successful in finding an audience. There's plenty of games that I've liked and been like, hey, look, I could see this being huge, Knockout City, and then, those games just disappear suddenly after a very short period of time. So
yeah,
I don't know
or
if this
in the case
will...
of Vanguard, not to keep knocking on that one specifically, that studio was very clear about, we've got a ton of runway, we've got this year-long update plan, we're really committed to supporting this, and then something happened, the budget fell out from under them, and now the game is shutting down on March 12th, right? So that's an example of, even when studios or games look like they have a long-term plan, stuff happens. We don't always know. And I don't think that's necessarily going to happen to Marathon, but it's very hard to guess at something like that and like the long-term, the longevity of a game like that.
What I would say is like some studios just know how to do live service games. And the truth is 85%, 90% of live service games are not successful when they come out. They're successful in 6 to 12 months after they come out. And you just see that happen a ton. And some studios have kind of the temperament for that. Bungie, they put Destiny 1 out there and it was not very successful until much later. And lots of studios have done that. And other ones don't have the tolerance for it and they just shut it down if it's not immediately the biggest game that's ever made. And so what they've got right now, just based off of the server slam, and I've played Marathon in a couple contexts. I think I first played it in 2024 and then I played it again in 2025. This is definitely the best version of it, right? Like I could kind of see the glimmer of what this game could be in its earliest forms, but there were just some of the polish and the kind of tuning that maybe wasn't exactly right. And with the server slam, it feels like they really got there. The gunplay is awesome. I mean, it just feels really good. The loop of like the pace at which you're getting new gear and unlocking new kind of lore pieces and completing quests and factions and all that stuff is really interesting. And the thing I'm probably most surprised by is how much story is in this game. But honestly, in the server slam, I was like constantly getting new lore, and every time they dropped something, I was like, wait, that's weird. Like, well, tell me more about that. And it kind of encourages you to do these quests because you just want to know what the heck. There's a faction that controls all business. Like, how did that happen? Like, what, you want to know about each of these groups. And so that part has been pretty surprising and pleasantly surprising, which is good.
And the server slam, just clarify for somebody like me, I didn't jump into the server slam. Like, how much new is there going to be when this game in the live environment? I know they're holding back content, like I said, for a couple weeks out, but like it's basically the full game, right?
Yeah, it has the vast majority of it. They held back one character in total that's going to be there at launch, which is actually it's this character. As a matter of fact, this lady right here I'm trying to point at. But it's one character, and then it's one new map called Outpost that will be there at launch, and then of course the end game content is coming at I think the second half of March, and that will add a fourth map. So we've seen about half of the maps that will be in the game within the first month, but on launch day, we're really just missing one new region, one new character, and then presumably there's some stuff they've kept from us in terms of how far you can progress with factions and quest lines and that sort of stuff. And so
Sure.
I'm expecting that some of that will be different, but like if you wanted to know overall what is the game going to feel like to play, what is the loop going to feel like in terms of getting loot and completing quests, like all of that was in the game. So I feel like I've received probably 75% of the picture that I need to know what this game is about. And the good news is that overwhelmingly that 75% so far is good. And so the question will be, can they nail the end game? Does it feel good after 100 hours versus just 20? Is it going to, there's like a bunch of questions that I have, and ultimately extraction shooters, of which I played many, they really do, their success depends on how well they are after your 100th 500th hour. Like people play these games for a very long time, and so
Yeah,
that
and
remains to
obviously
be
not
seen.
something you can just guess at, which is why this isn't a
Correct.
final review yet. It sounds like you're enjoying it overall. You want to play more of it. You're looking forward to playing more of it. But what are some of the slip ups that you've seen?
Yeah, I've got some notes on this game. So Bungie is like really famously bad at a couple things, and they're still bad at them in Marathon. Sorry, Bungie, I love you guys, but like there's just some stuff you got to work on. One of them is like onboarding. So if you log into Destiny today, the first thing you're going to say is, "What the hell am I supposed to do?" And that is a big problem. Marathon kind of has the same problem. They have some ways for you to find out like really basic things about how the game works, but they're mostly, in my opinion, like tips on how to play an extraction shooter in case this is your first one. Like it's kind of like
Mm,
really basic stuff. But in terms of like how their advanced systems work or what you're supposed to actually be doing out in missions, aside from just like finding loot and trying to protect yourself, and all that, like really vague iconography that you have to just like figure out as you go. And so there's, maybe some of that is intentional because they definitely don't want to hold your hand, and it adds like a little bit of mystery to the world, but it also makes it way more likely for somebody to bounce off the game because they have no idea what they're doing, right? And they don't know what the long-term progression goal is. And so I have some worries about that. Another thing Bungie's never been good at is geometry. I don't know how many times in Destiny I've screamed, "What am I stuck on?" And Marathon has a little bit of that, especially in a very sweaty PvP game. The last thing you want to do is be like mantling up something, and your character's hands just sort of like mutely paw at the wall and don't actually pull you up. There's also kind of a new one, which is movement. I actually think Bungie generally is okay with movement, but this game has an issue where your character can feel quite heavy, a little bit slow, unless you are specifically the one character who's like super ability is that she moves quickly. But like other than that, like you feel a little clunky. It's sometimes very hard to deal with verticality because of the fall damage is so oppressive. Like you step off of a box a little too high, and you'll take some amount of damage. And then also they do a heat system, which is like your character building up heat by sliding and running and jumping and that sort of thing. And it causes you to basically hit a stamina meter cap, and then you move like a slug for several seconds while you recover. And they do some interesting things with it. I think it is intentional design. Like they do this really cool thing, Tom, where like if you're running and building up heat but it's raining, it'll show a little meter that like the rain is cooling you down, and so your
hmm.
heat builds less. Or if you choose to run through like a swampy area, because your feet are in swamp water, it'll cool you down. But then the offset is that you're making more noise when you're in the water moving around. So they do some like cool stuff with it, and they try to give you like some basically bare obstacles that you have to work with in the game's design. But it kind of feels not great sometimes. So I think they have
Well,
some work to do on movement a little bit.
you are also a known sprint stamina hater.
Yeah, no, the two things I like hate more than anything in video games are sprint stamina meters and inventory. And extraction shooters are basically just both of those things as a game. So like, I play a lot of extraction shooters, but like the beauty in a good extraction shooter is knowing exactly where to draw the line to make those things obstacles without making them make you just not want to play the game. And so I think they do a decent job with the stamina and the inventory. It's kind of too early to tell because they only let you upgrade your inventory twice during the server slam, and I can see
Sure.
you can do it more, but like I don't really know what the end game inventory looks like. But like having to throw things away or reaching encumbrance, like it just sucks. But in an extraction shooter, it's also a core part of the design. It just has to be
Right.
there, because if you could carry all of the loot, then it would just be busted. So you have
Yeah,
to like
you're
make
not advocating
decisions.
for infinite loot here. You're just
Yeah, yeah. I'm just
recognizing
saying
what the
in
limitations
general,
cause. Yeah.
yeah, in general it doesn't vibe with my personality to like, just same with reloading. I also never really liked reloading. It's just like it's a loading
Wait, wait,
screen
wait,
right in the
wait,
middle
wait.
of combat.
I think that
Yeah.
one's pretty fundamental to an
I know
FPS.
it is, but like Doom doesn't have it. You don't reload your guns in Doom games,
Fair
so
enough.
like,
Fair
yeah,
enough.
there are some exceptions, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, why does my reload time take so long? But I will say, Marathon doesn't have that problem. I never worried about the reloading in Marathon. It always felt like exactly as long as it should be. Like sidearms and hand cannons really quick, but then if I had an LMG, it was a little longer. I basically have no criticisms about the gunplay and the build of Marathon that was in the server slam. It is just Bungie at the peak of what they do well. So I really that is the most complimentary thing I have to say about what I've played so far.
And it sounds like that is carrying a lot of weight. That's sustaining a lot of your
Oh yeah,
enjoyment of it right now too.
yeah. That the
Well,
PvP encounters and also the loot game. Like the loot is
sure.
quite good, which I think Bungie got good at loot over the course of Destiny, and they're just pulling out all the stops in Marathon. Like you get a gun or even a mod or something small that changes the way your class works, and it gets your brain ticking about like, oh well, I could do this sort of thing. Like there was a, a legendary backpack that when you put it on, its power was whenever you're looting an item or interacting with any lootable item in the game, your character goes completely invisible, and not like camouflaged, because there is like a camo effect in the game. Like it deletes your character from the game. Like you're just gone, right? And so it got this really cool thing where it's like, oh, now if I'm in a gunfight and I'm losing, I can just run around the corner and just interact with a barrel, and suddenly my character's just gone, and the person's turning the corner like, where did they go? And like just stuff like that, where it's like, that is a game changing item that I just happen to come across, and like I will guard that with my life because I don't want anybody to kill me and take this backpack. And so
Sure.
the loot game is like the other thing that they really, I think the two things you have to get right in an extraction shooter is gunplay and loot, and so far it seems like those are the things this game is doing the best. And so that would tend to say that this is going to be a pretty good game, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how all that stuff pans out in the coming weeks. Travis, you'll be back with your final scored actual review in a couple of weeks once you've had your time to put Marathon through its paces, see all this endgame stuff, see the final map character, all of that jazz. If you want more from Travis and more shooty games from Travis, he reviewed High on Life 2 somewhat recently, or for a very different kind of shooter, Resident Evil Requiem, we just reviewed recently as well. And for everything else, stick with IGN.